Discover the haunted secret of the sinister neighbor, a spine-chilling tale of cursed lives. Emily's heart raced as shadows drooped like hands reaching into her cramped living room. The dim light flickered, revealing walls that whispered secrets of despair and a coldness that clung to the air. Her eyes darted towards the window where Mr. Hargrove's house stood, once a beacon of friendliness, now wrapped in whispers of dread. It was the perfect suburban nightmare, the kind that intertwines with reality, and grips you tightly until you can't breathe. The laughter she had shared with her son, Jake, now felt like echoes of a happier past, interrupted by an unsettling silence that clawed at her peace. Every evening, after working 2 exhausting shifts, Emily would walk through the front door, filled with the sense of microwave dinners and remnants of cartoon laughter. But tonight? Something was off. Pets had gone missing from yards, and the rustling in the night it was louder than before. Like the world outside held its breath, waiting for some horrible event to unfold. Panic bubbled inside her, rising to her throat as she recalled the distant sounds of laughter from the woods behind their homes. It was a cruel mockery, drawing them in with false comfort. Just as she tried to shake the feeling, she caught sight of Jake wide-eyed, on the verge of slipping out the back door. A thrill of fear shot through Emily. "Jake!" she hissed, grabbing his arm. "What are you doing?" But the call of the darkness was seductive, and she couldn't fight the pull with uncertainty in her throat. The woods, once merely trees, loomed ominously, as if carved from nightmares. Stepping cautiously onto the porch, Emily squinted into the thickening night. Jake crept into the shadows, following a dark shape. You guessed it, Mr. Hargrove. Emily's blood turned to ice. Memories of friendly casserole exchanges flashed dangerously in her mind. What was waiting for them in those woods? With dread shadowing her every step, she reluctantly followed. The leaves crunched underfoot like broken promises. Covering her mouth to silence her racing heartbeat, she stepped deeper into the gnarly trees. The night cloaked her, wrapping her in an unsettling embrace. As she approached the clearing, she froze. There was Jake, captivated, staring at symbols carved into the earth, glowing softly under the pale moonlight. Ritualistic patterns hummed like a sinister song, tales of curses and shadows dancing on the fringes of her understanding. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily's insides twisted. The sense of horror intensified with each passing second as the woods began to whisper back, a wind raking through the branches, secreting the air with chills. She felt the weight of unseen eyes upon them, watching, waiting. Jake stood mesmerized, as if the very ground had stolen his soul. And the laughter, oh, that chilling laughter echoed again, slicing through the night like a jagged knife. She swallowed hard, knowing that if she didn't act now, the darkness would swallow everything dear to her: her son, her home, their lives. As she pulled Jake closer, the laughter pulsed and curled like a serpent's tongue, the shadows around them thickening. They were not alone. In that moment, Emily was faced with a terrifying choice: confront the growing evil lingering just beyond the light or lose everything. And right then, she felt a brush against her leg, something cold and wet. Breathing. Was it a creature? Or merely the vestige of nightmares born in the darkest heart of suburbia? A chill shot through Emily's body as she cursed herself for stepping into this nightmare. The soft rustle at her feet wasn't just her imagination, it pulsed with life, and it was far too close. A gagging panic rose, but she stifled it, forcing herself to adjust her grip on Jake, the warmth of his small body grounding her in this suffocating darkness. "Mom? What's happening?" Jake's voice, sweet and confused, cut through the tension. She couldn't answer. Her eyes darted around the clearing, searching for the source of that laughter. It was more than just noise, it was a force, twisting the air and drowning her in dread. The black trees stretched upwards, claw-like branches reaching for them as if they wanted to pull her into the abyss. "Jake, we need to go," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. She tugged on his arm, but he stood transfixed. The symbols on the ground pulsed, each one a heartbeat within the darkness. It was almost hypnotic, drawing her son into their embrace. "No, Mom. Look." Jake gasped, pointing. What she saw made her stomach churn. Shadows began to morph, taking shapes. Twisted figures with hollow, glinting eyes watched from the edges of the woods. She felt the heat drain from her body. They were not just figments of fear, they were real. "No." She gripped Jake tighter and yanked him sideways, trying to retreat, but the laughter grew louder, surging, enveloping them in a dreadful symphony. "Run." As they staggered backward, the ground seemed to push them, an unnatural force trying to keep them trapped in that clearing. Suddenly, out of the night, a figure emerged, a dark silhouette cloaked in shadow. It was Mr. Hargrove, his eyes glistening with a wild, manic light. "Emily, dear," he crooned, his voice smooth yet laced with an unsettling glee. "You shouldn't be here. This is where we play." Emily's breath caught in her throat. A primitive instinct kicked in, one that screamed for her to protect Jake at all costs. "Stay behind me." As she moved her arm back, a snarl erupted from the trees. Something snarled and lashed out, snapping like a whip, just inches from where she stood, revealing glistening fangs. The darkness felt alive, clawing at them, begging them to stay, to join the cursed. Emily's heart pounded relentlessly. "Mom!" Jake cried, the tremor in his voice a razor edge against her skin. "Run!" she yelled. In one swift motion, she pushed Jake toward the path they had come from. She could see fragments of light beyond the woods, the dull glow of her porch light, their safe haven. She turned, but the shadows converged around them, forcing her back toward the center of that cursed circle. With her heart pounding in her ears, Emily sprinted toward her son, grabbing his hand. But Jake was still transfixed, eyes fixed on the glowing symbols as the shadows swirled closer, pulling him away with silent whispers. "Jake! Come on!" The world warped as the laughing crescendo reached a deafening climax, coursing like poison through the air. She had to break the spell. With desperation, she threw herself against the shadows, feeling them claw at her legs, no longer just a whisper, now a tangible force trying to drag her into a maelstrom of nightmare. Just then, from the corner of her eye, she spotted one last symbol, a glyph more radiant than the rest, glistening with pulsing intensity. The whispers screamed louder, vying for her attention, promising freedom, urges that pounded inside her skull. "Emily, come." Mr. Hargrove beckoned, a sinister smile spreading under the cruel moonlight. With one frantic thought to save Jake, she lunged toward the glyph, ready to shatter its hold and free her son from these cursed woods. But would the darkness allow her to escape? As her fingers reached for the symbol, shadows erupted around them, shrieks piercing the night, and she realized there might be no leaving this nightmare. What would she have to sacrifice to save her son? And more chillingly, what if they were never meant to escape at all? The breathless silence shattered when Emily's fingertips brushed against the shimmering glyph. A blinding light erupted, dazzling her senses, and she felt the shadows recoil from its glow as though they were fire. For one agonizing instant, Emily dared to hope. But the laughter cut through the air, chilling her to the core. It hissed and shrieked, reverberating like shattered glass in her skull. "Mom!" Jake's voice was desperate, reaching out to her through the chaos. But she couldn't take her eyes off the symbol. Something deeper than fear compelled her closer, a promise of safety wrapped in an ominous push. As she gripped the glyph, its energy surged, flooding her with warmth and cold. No, it wasn't warmth. It was a false comfort, like the calm before a storm. "Emily. Just a touch. Just a touch, and everything will be fine, I promise." Mr. Hargrove's voice twisted into a wheedling whisper that sunk under her skin. "Shut up!" she screamed, hurling herself back from the glyph. The shadows seemed to pulse with anger, swirling furiously around them. The air was thick with a miasma of confusion. Was she losing her grip on reality? "Jake!" She turned, frantically scanning the clearing. But Jake was not with her anymore. He had stepped forward, eyes dilated, entranced by the glyph's glow. His face was blank, and Emily's heart stopped. "Jake, come back." She reached for him, but the shadows encircled him, swallowing his small form. The giggles intensified, swirling around them like a whirlwind of terror. In that moment, time felt suspended. She saw his fear, raw and real. Something loomed over him, a monstrous silhouette formed of shadow and wicked glee. It reached out, pulling him closer to its grasp. "No!" Emily hissed, a surge of fury igniting within her. She surged forward, desperation lending her strength. "You want to take him. I want to let you." Calculating her next move, she thrust her hand toward the glyph, hoping to harness its power but resisting the pull of the laughter beckoning her to submit. The moment her hand brushed against it, a shockwave pulsed outward, the shadows recoiling like a hurt animal. But Jake remained ensnared within their grip, his gaze vacant, staring into the abyss. "Mommy, help!" he cried, as if awakening from a dream only to realize the horror enveloping him. "Hold on!" Emily shouted, fighting through the surge of oppressive force closing in. Shadows lunged, snapping at her heels. She stumbled and nearly fell, her heart pounding as if it might burst. Then she saw it, a glimmer of silver nestled in the ground. A jagged piece of metal, sharp and gleaming in defiance of the darkness. Grabbing it, she sprinted forward, every muscle screaming to protect Jake. With a guttural yell, she struck down at the swirling shadows. The metal sliced through the air, cutting into the thick darkness. A jolt erupted from the ground, sending shockwaves through the clearing. The laughter turned to wails, shrieks fading into desperate cries of retreat. The shadows convulsed, writhing away from her like snakes in boiling water. But they still held Jake tight, their grip firm. "Mom!" he cried again, reaching out with trembling fingers. "I'm coming!" she yelled, lunging forward. Adrenaline surged through her. As she neared him, she swung the metal piece around like a weapon, desperation fueling her strength. The shadows hissed, hissing like smoke, but Emily pushed through. "Let him go." In a final stand, she lunged forward, striking the ground where the shadows held their grip. A blinding shockwave erupted, pushing back against the darkness with the force of a freight train. The shadows screamed, and for a moment, they parted. But would it be enough? "Jake! Grab my hand!" Just as he reached for her, the darkness roared in rejection, tightening its hold with a vengeance. A sickening crack echoed through the clearing, and Emily felt the floor tremble beneath her feet. "Embrace the darkness, Emily," Mr. Hargrove intoned, his voice a haunting lullaby that threatened to lull her into despair. "You cannot escape what you were meant to become." As the shadows closed in once again, Emily found herself at a crossroads: move ahead and plunge deeper into the chaos, or flee and leave Jake behind. The choice weighed heavy on her heart, but time was running out. "Jake!" she screamed, hands outstretched, but the shadows were closing in fast. What choice would she make? Would the darkness claim them both, or could she find the light? Math, logic, nothing mattered. The forest swirled with twisted promises of power, waiting to see what she would sacrifice next. Emily felt the ground pulsing beneath her feet, alive with the heartbeat of the darkness. Fear clawed at her throat, ripping the breath from her lungs. She could feel Jake's presence slipping, like sand through her fingers, and the laughter echoed around her, thick and cloying. "No, no, no." Panic surged in waves, hot and suffocating. The shadows hissed, slithering forward, snapping and darting like venomous snakes. She dropped the jagged metal in the frenzy, and it clattered away, lost in the chaos. "Mommy!" Jake's voice shattered through the laughter, a bright beacon of innocence in a storm of evil. "Hold on." Emily's heart raced as she leaped, driving her arm forward, willing the shadows to release him. With her soul tethered to Jake, she plunged deep into the cascading darkness. This was no longer just about survival, it was about defiance. The shadows responded with a furious wave, crashing against her. They clawed at her legs, dragging her down, attempting to pull her away from her child. Just when despair threatened to consume her, she felt a spark igniting within her. The glyph's light throbbed, calling her back. She plunged her hands into the inky depths, feeling the texture of fear, of rage. "I want to let you have him," she cried, the sound drowning out the relentless laughter. Each word carved her resolve deeper, resonating with a power that felt almost ancient. "Jake! Fight! Remember our game!" Emily shouted, tapping into the memories of laughter and sunshine. "You are stronger than this." The shadows quivered at her command, wavering just enough for her to peer through to Jake's wide, terrified eyes. "Mommy!" he cried, reaching out. In that moment, something shifted. Emily glimpsed a flicker of his spirit fighting back. The shadows pulsated angrily, unwilling to lose their grip, and the laughter crescendoed, demanding her surrender. "Just a little longer," she yelled, summoning strength from deep within, a place that screamed for freedom. She could sense the heat of the glyph's power flowing through her veins. With renewed ferocity, she tore her way into the heart of the shadows. Each swing of her arm felt like a beacon, a light in the treachery of night. Suddenly, the glyph surged, sending light coursing through her fingers. It spun out like a whip, illuminating the darkness in an ethereal glow. The laughter faltered, turning into shrieks of rage and confusion, their power ebbing as the light grew stronger. "Let Jake go." The commanding tone of her voice resonated against the pulsing darkness. The shadows faltered, folding back under the weight of her fierce love for her son, but just as Jake began to rise, the shadows curdled at the edges, swirling with desperation. "You think you can save him?" Mr. Hargrove cackled, his figure weaving through the dark like an ancient specter. "You cannot fight what's in your blood. You've already lost." Emily's heart sank. The truth stung like acid. Was her blood the very thing that granted her strength, or was it the curse that chained her? With one last push, she reached for Jake, fear intertwining with hope as she extended her hand. "I will always fight for you. Grab my hand." His tiny fingers reached out, warmth touching her palm, but just as he connected, the shadows surged back, angry and relentless. "Foolish girl." Hargrove growled, his presence enveloping her in a suffocating grip. The shadows didn't just want Jake, they aimed to drag her down with him. And as they pulled, Emily felt her resolve waning. But the flickering light ignited one last time, calling forth a sliver of courage. "No. I want to let you take him." Tension crackled in the air, and as her voice rose against the darkness, the light became a blinding flash, slicing through everything. And then blackness clawed at her vision, threatening to consume her whole. "She was falling, Mom," echoed around her, and Emily's heart raced. Would the darkness finally claim them? Or had she unleashed something far worse? The shadows writhed, and she could feel them closing in, yet hope flickered, beckoning from the chasm of despair. What awaited her on the other side of the darkness, and would she ever find Jake again? Falling through a void, Emily's breath turned into a frantic gasp, each instant stretching into infinity. The blackness enveloped her like thick tar, weighing her down. Flashes of light blinked at the edges of her vision, memories mixed with shattered laughter swirling chaotically. She landed hard, the impact shaking her to the core. Pain shot through her limbs, but she pushed it aside. What mattered was finding Jake. She scrambled up, heart hammering, eyes darting. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice cracking. Empty silence answered. It was oppressive, the kind that draped over a person like a leaden blanket. Slowly, she turned, her surroundings sharpening into focus. She stood in a narrow corridor, walls looming with a menacing familiarity. It felt like the hallway of her childhood home, yet a rancid odor lingered, a mix of decay and something far worse. The wallpaper peeled like old skin, curling away from the dampened walls, revealing dark stains beneath. "Mommy." The muffled voice came from somewhere far off, like a ghostly echo. It was Jake. Emily stumbled toward the source, dread coiling in her gut. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with a sense of despair. She reached a door at the end of the hall's solid wood, worn with age, the handle icy to the touch. "Jake!" she cried again, shaking the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Suddenly, the laughter returned, a cruel chorus that vibrated through the floor, mocking her desperation. "Why can't you just let go?" a voice hissed from behind her, low and rumbling. She spun around. There he was, Mr. Hargrove, his shadow stretching against the wall behind him. His grin was wicked, eyes glinting with malevolence. "You didn't really think you could escape, did you?" Clenching her fists, courage surged once more. "Where's Jake?" "Oh, he's safe for now," he taunted, his laughter echoing like thunder. "But you? You have a darkness in you, Emily. It calls for blood, and I'm here to collect." With a sudden wave of his hand, the walls trembled, and shadows swarmed around her, whispering secrets of her past moments of anger, regret, and betrayal. They painted vivid pictures, each a taunt, each a reminder. "No. I am not what you say." She fought back, summoning the glyph's light within her once more. It burned, igniting a glimmer of defiance that pushed back against the dark tide. "Don't you see? History does not forget. It bleeds in your veins." Hargrove spat, advancing toward her, shadows creeping closer. Emily gasped, feeling the weight of her lineage pull her down. The stories whispered, clawing at her thoughts, dredging up images of familial curses, the sins of those who came before her. Was she destined to repeat them? "Jake!" she screamed, the name tearing from her throat as she pressed against the door. The shadows writhed against her, seeking to break her resolve. With a shattering effort, she drove her shoulders against the door, the glyph radiating wild energy, pooling into her fists. "Get away from me," she said, voice steady now. The light exploded outward, dissipating the shadows and sending Hargrove staggering back. The door cracked open, just a sliver, and she froze. From within, a haunting melody of Jake's laughter chimed through the crevice, intertwined with soft sobs that cut her heart like glass. The sound ignited a fierce protector's instinct, desperation merging with the newfound light within her. "Stay back," she warned, eyes locking onto Hargrove, who seemed to shrivel in the brightness, but the door a mere inches apart remained a barrier, obscured by darkness. Behind it lay her son. With everything she had, she thrust her shoulder one last time, knowing that failure was not an option, knowing that love could shatter even the darkest curse. As the door reverberated, reality twisted beneath her, shadows whirling with an agonizing shriek. Would the glyph be enough to break through? Could she save Jake, or had she awakened something far more dangerous? The door teetered on the edge, flinging her heart into a perilous balance. Would she open it, and at what cost? The door flew open with a crack that echoed like thunder, and Emily was blinded by a searing white light, flooding her senses. She stumbled forward, feeling a rush of hope surge through her like electricity. "Jake!" she cried out again, desperate. But as the light dissipated, shadows spilled from the door, coiling around her ankles like venomous snakes, dragging her back into the suffocating darkness. Jake's soft voice mingled with the shadows, a haunting lullaby that sent shivers racing up her spine. "Mommy, help me." "No. I'm coming." She fought against the darkness clutching at her legs, wrenching her way into the room, or whatever hell it had become. The moment she crossed the threshold, the shadows pulled back slightly, revealing a grotesque playroom. Old toys lay scattered like forgotten memories. Dust motes danced in the fading light from a lone window, the glass cracked and filthy. But it was Jake's face that sent a chill down her spine. He knelt on the floor, tears streaming down a face so pale it seemed almost ghostly. "Mommy," he whispered again, eyes wide with fear. She rushed to him, falling to her knees. "Jake!" "Thank God." But as she reached out, he flinched, moving away. "What's wrong?" "No. Don't touch me." He recoiled, the fear in his voice breaking her heart. The shadows flickered, swirling with energy, feeding off his fear. "What did he do to you?" she demanded, panic rising. Behind her, the door slammed shut, the sudden sound like a gunshot in the heart of her hope. "Mommy," the words were barely a whisper as Jake turned his gaze towards the corner. A figure slumbered there, the essence of Mr. Hargrove intertwining with the very fabric of the room, shadows pooling at his feet. "He said you can't save me, that I must stay." A piercing chill shot through the air. The cracks in the walls extended, creeping toward her, as if the room itself sought to consume her. "I won't let that happen," she shouted defiantly, lungs burning with fear. "Emily," Hargrove's voice slithered through the room like thick smoke. "You've taken your first steps into a world beyond your reckoning. Your son is part of the game now. The price for your lineage is high, and collecting is a delicate business." The shadows thickened, pressing against her vision, distorting the world around her. She could feel their cold breath, brushing against her skin, whispering promises of despair. "Jake, hold on to me," she yelled, reaching again, heart pounding. His expression was clouded with confusion and dread. "No. I'm sorry, Mommy. I can't, don't say that," she cried, tears carving tracks down her cheeks. "You have to fight. We can break this together." In that instant, as she reached out again, a surge of warmth radiated from the glyph on her palm. It pulsed like a heartbeat, growing stronger, rippling out in waves. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, but Hargrove's figure remained rooted, laughter erupting like thunder. "What do you think you're doing?" he mocked. "A trinket can't protect you here. The darkness revels in your desperation." Yet the light pushed back the shadows, illuminating the room. It wrapped around Jake, showing the tiny figure bound by invisible chains, fear and despair coiling tightly around him like a serpent. Her heart raced as the glyph intensified, light thrusting against the confines of the darkness. "Jake!" With a forceful shout, she drove her light forward. "Break his grip." As the illumination surged, the room twisted violently, walls shrieking in fracture. Hargrove's laughter darkened, twisting with rage. "You're making a mistake. You think you can rewrite the past? You'll doom him." The shadows whipped violently, colliding with her light. In the chaos, something shifted inside Emily, a bond forged from love. Would it be enough? Could she break the curse of fear for her son? "Don't give up," she urged, their souls connected by sheer will. And in that moment, as light collided with darkness, time stood still. Choices hung heavy in the air, and a realization washed over her. Could she truly change their fate, or were they both bound to a tragic end? Behind her, the laughter faded, leaving an echo of foreboding stillness. Would they escape together, or was the darkness destined to conquer their love? The room shuddered violently as if reacting to the clash of light and darkness. Emily's breath quickened, panic clawing at her throat. The tendrils of shadow twisted together in frenetic agitation, a living entity seeking to drown her in despair. She felt it pulling at her heart, sick and heavy, and she struggled against an unseen force that nearly stole her breath. "Jake!" she cried again, the name tearing from her lips. Her heart imploded at the sight of him, so small, so vulnerable, trapped. "Mommy!" His voice echoed against the walls, sharp and terrified. But the shadows fed on his fear, each cry penetrating deeper into her soul, a dagger twisting painfully. Hargrove's malevolent laughter shattered her resolve. "You're just delaying the inevitable, Emily. His fate is sealed. You can't change what is destined to be." "No," she screamed. "I won't accept that." With every ounce of will she possessed, Emily thrust the light forward again. The room vibrated, shadows receding as if physically hurt. They writhed and coiled around Hargrove, the darkness now at war with itself. Doubt flickered in his eyes for the briefest moment. "Get away from him." She felt the glyph on her palm pulse fiercely, and a surge of warmth enveloped her, a lifeline strung taut between mother and son. "Emily, please." Jake whimpered, clutching at the floor, his small body trembling. "I don't want to stay. We're leaving, Jake. Trust me," she shouted, pushing through the venomous fog of shadow that encircled them. The room twisted, walls groaning as they warped and shifted, the space contorting into a swirling tempest of despair. The darkness lashed out at her, but she stood firm, a beacon of hope against the oncoming storm. It clawed at her, icy fingers grazing her skin, threatening to peel away her strength. Still, she fought on, a mother at war with the depths of hell. With a final pleading cry, she pulled the light tight around Jake. "Take my hand." He hesitated, his eyes wide with terror. "I'm scared." "Don't be." Her voice cracked, the shadows pulsating wildly. "Hold on and believe." For a heartbeat, the world fell away, time suspended as if the universe held its breath. Then he reached for her. In that instant, the glyph exploded, a radiant pulse that engulfed them in blinding light. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage and loss as they recoiled, fraying at the edges like smoke in a strong wind. Together, they were a force. Her heart thudded against her ribs, rhythms merging as if the universe conspired to create a bridge between them, bridging fear and hope. As the light soared, its brilliance pierced the corners of dark, the corners of despair. Miraculously, the chains that bound Jake began to dissolve, snapping like twine, but then, Hargrove's form twisted grotesquely, transforming from a mere villain to something altogether darker. His eyes, once human, blazed with a feverish fury. "You meddling fool. You think you can steal him from me?" "Jake!" she shouted, urgency pouring from her every word. "Now! Move!" In a wild scramble, Jake lunged towards her, but Hargrove surged forward, a black wave rising against them. Emily felt the air turn thick, suffocating, the darkness rising in one last bid for control. Just as Hargrove reached for Jake, Emily summoned every fragment of light left within her. "Get away!" she yelled, pouring her essence into the light, a blinding explosion that flooded the room. Sudden stillness. Silence blanketed the chaos, her heart thudding in the quiet. Had they succeeded? Had the light chased away the shadows? The emptiness wrapped around them, pregnant with possibilities, or a newly laid trap. No time to breathe, no time to think. She felt something shift, palpable danger simmering on the edge. "Mommy? Are we safe?" Jake's voice trembled, eyes wide and innocent. "That's the question, isn't it?" From a tremulous breath. The shadows lurked just out of sight, waiting, and then a rumble. The floor beneath them quaked, a deep groan resonating as the darkness began to creep back, surging forth with vengeful power. "Run!" she shouted, gripping Jake tightly. As they turned to escape, Emily couldn't shake the chilling thought lingering like a ghost at the pit of her stomach. They had fought, but now the real nightmare was just beginning. What lay beyond the door they fled through? And what sacrifices would they have to make to break free from Hargrove's curse? The shadows beckoned, twisting, hungry for their return. The moment they lashed through the door, the chill of the hallway embraced them with a suffocating grasp. The walls flickered with an unsettling light, casting shadows that danced and writhed as if alive. Emily's breath came in short gasps, urgency fueling her movements. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Keep up, Jake! Where do we go?" he cried, his small voice nearly lost against the deafening silence of the corridor. "Anywhere but here." Instinct guided her feet, propelling them forward as the oppressive darkness clawed at their backs, insatiable, ravenous. They raced past doorways that loomed like gaping mouths, each shadowed threshold promising a different brand of horror. Every echo was a ricochet of her fear, every flicker of light a false promise of safety. Emily could feel it behind them, the heavy presence of Hargrove, perhaps more monstrous than before, driven by vengeance. She didn't dare look back. "Run, Jake. Keep your eyes on me." Jake's breath hitched, a fragile sound. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Me too," she whispered, her heart smashing against her ribs with each frantic step. The hallway twisted like a maze, leading them deeper into the bowels of the house. Every turn felt wrong, like stepping into the belly of a beast. The air turned thick, the shadows crawling with their own life, unervingly close. "Help me!" a disembodied voice wailed from the nearest door. Emily froze, her stomach a hardened lump. Please don't leave me here. It sounded like a child, desperate and frightened. Mommy? Jake's voice trembled. No, Jake. She pressed on, the echo of the voice gnawing at her resolve. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back to save whoever that was. But she couldn't. Not yet. We have to focus on getting out. They reached a staircase, the wood moaning beneath their weight. As they ascended, Emily couldn't shake the suffocating dread curling in her chest. Each step felt heavier than the last. Suddenly, a shattering crash echoed below them. A surge of darkness flared to life, spiraling up the stairs, hungry and fierce. Run! Emily shouted. The shadows lunged, clawing at her hair, pulling her back into the depths of nightmare. Mommy! Jake screamed, his small fingers slipping from her grip. No! Panic surged along with adrenaline. She spun around, the world blurring, plunging into the darkness for him. Grabbing his arm, she pulled him back harshly just as the shadow coiled around her ankle, attempting to pull her down. It was like quicksand, gripping her tighter with every frantic heartbeat. The glyph on her palm flared again, a sudden warmth flooding through her veins. Let him go. Get away from us. The darkness shrieked a sound that rattled her bones, almost human in its desperation. In response, she tightened her hold on Jake, igniting the light flowing through her palm. Crashing through the weight of the darkness, a brilliant flare erupted from her. It split the shadows like water, sending them snarling back. Now! Up the stairs. Breathless, they sprinted onward, heart pounding against her ribs, each step echoing with the certainty of more dread. This has to end. She murmured, desperate for anything solid to cling to Beth's warning, her friend's hushed voice, the living curse of Hargrove's domain. Suddenly, a door stood at the end of the hall, cracked open with a pulsing light spilling through. That way. Emily urged, racing toward it. As they neared, the shadows surged again from the depths, feeding on her fear, latching onto her. She could feel her strength waning. Please give me strength. She cried out, panic consuming her. Just then, an icy wind blew through the hall, breathing life into her fading resolve. The glyph on her palm felt aflame, power surging back. As they breached the threshold into the glow, a new sensation filled the air, one of binding, of reckoning. Emily's heart sank at the horrifying realization, this was Hargrove's sanctum. The room pulsed with energy, memories of lost souls swirling in the shimmer of light. Tortured whispers filled the air, painting a portrait of suffering. What have we walked into? She gasped. Before she could process it, shadows erupted behind them, baring malicious teeth, closing in with a feral hunger. Mommy, what's happening? Jake whimpered, eyes wide with terror. As the door slammed shut behind them, sealing off their escape, Emily could only clutch his hand tighter. We're not done yet, she breathed, resolve hardening within her. And in that moment, she knew, to survive, they'd have to face Hargrove after all. But what unspeakable price would that exact? The doors rattled violently behind them as a low, mocking chuckle filled the air. They weren't alone, and the shadows weren't finished with them yet. What monstrosity awaited in this crypt of despair? The air thickened, almost pulsating with the weight of unseen eyes. Emily felt a dread wash over her, each whisper in the chamber tugging her deeper into despair. The glowing room, once a shimmer of hope, now felt more like a prison, the light mocking her impending doom. Jake, stay close. She urged, scanning the space for anything that looked like a weapon, a way out, or even a hint of safety. The shadows writhed, flickering against the walls, as if the memories trapped within were as restless as they were. A figure emerged from the gloom, indistinct at first, but gradually sharpening into form. A woman with hollow eyes and a face carved from anguish stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. You shouldn't have come here. Emily's heart raced. What do you mean? The woman raised a trembling hand, gesturing toward a wall heavy with portraits. Faces twisted in agony were trapped within the frames, each one looked like they were reaching out, begging for release. We were all part of his game. Hargrove's rules. Once you're inside, you can never escape, she rasped, glancing nervously behind her, as if fearing the shadows might strike. That a chill enveloped Emily, her blood turning icy. But we can't stay. We have to find a way out for Jake. Suddenly, the shadows jerked violently, coiling around Jake's legs. Mommy! He shrieked, terror lacing his voice. Emily lunged forward, her own body now a tether against the pull of the dark. For the love of God, hold on. The woman launched herself forward, surprisingly fierce. You must listen. The only way to escape Hargrove's hold is to understand it. Understand what? Emily strained against the shadows, feeling their grip slide toward her very soul. The curse, its origins. It's bound in the sorrow of betrayal, the woman explained, her voice taut with desperation. Hargrove feeds on the fear of lost souls. Each one of us trapped in this hell is a piece of the puzzle. Another shadow lashed at the woman, and Emily's heart dropped as she watched her face contort in panic. No. Not again. I want to go back. With a burst of energy, the shadows consumed her, leaving nothing but a shudder echoing in the arcane glow. What the hell is happening? Emily shouted, the prospect of escape dwindling as darkness started to close in on them. Mommy, I can't breathe. Jake cried, his small voice a pinprick of light in the encroaching dark. Emily squatted down to meet his frantic eyes. Listen to me, Jake. We have to find out what Hargrove wants. Stay focused. Breathe with me. As they steadied their breaths, the shadows froze, momentarily unsettled. In that heartbeat, Emily spotted an ornate box on a pedestal in the center of the room. Shimmering with a faint light, it drew her closer, almost whispering secrets of release. Jake, can you hold on a little longer? He nodded, though thin threads of fear tugged at his features. Emily's heart thundered in her chest, and she raced toward the box, fear and desperation propelling her. When she reached it, her fingers brushed against the cold surface. The glyph on her palm pulsed fiercely, but she hesitated. What if opening it unleashed something darker? What if it was the key to Hargrove's torment? I have to know. She screamed, gripping the edges of the box. As she lifted the lid, a gale swept through the room, shadows screaming in agony, twisting into a chaotic vortex that threatened to swallow them whole. In that instant, a vision crashed over her, a glimpse into Hargrove's past, betrayal buried deep in the heart of the house. Faces, identities, all twisted in pain as the truth clawed at her mind. Something deep inside her stirred, awakening a memory of her own. And just as panic surged, the shadows converged in a final desperate lunge toward the box. Jake! She shouted, ready to fight the impending darkness. But in that chaotic whirlwind, the air thickened, transforming the room into a whirlwind of shadows and shrieks. The box jarred in her grip as the last pieces fell into place. We're not alone in this. She cried, pulling Jake up beside her. Together, we can break this. But as the shadows shattered around them, a chilling voice, smooth and sinister, echoed through the tumult. You think you can challenge me? In that moment, Emily realized with horror, Hargrove was more than just a haunting spirit. He was here, alive in every corner, every whisper, waiting for their final move. As the shadows lunged again, she understood they stood at a precipice not just of survival, but of awakening darkness that could consume them both. Would they harness the light within to face the shadows, or was it too late to turn back? Emily fought to catch her breath, feeling as though a vice gripped her chest. The weight of despair clawed at her soul, suffocating all hope. But in that swirling tempest of darkness, a flicker of resolve ignited deep within her. Jake! She cried, turning to grasp her son tightly. We're facing this together. No matter what. Jake nodded, determination washing over his small, frightened face. She could see it. He wanted to believe, to fight through the pain. And just like that, they stood as one, a tiny beacon of defiance against the very essence of evil. The box pulsed with a strange, warm energy, urging her closer, promising salvation. As shadows writhed, Emily felt their hunger. Darkness sought to reclaim what it had wanted for so long. But the light was in her veins now, and she was ready to wield it. She threw open the lid with a primal scream, releasing a burst of brilliant energy that momentarily bathed the room in daylight. The shadows recoiled, twisted, as if scorched by the radiant flame emanating from the box. And then, the air shimmered, carrying ancient whispers, echoing with truths long buried. Fear is what fuels him, she realized, the weight of it crashing down upon her. We have to face that fear, not run from it. Inside the box lay a shimmering orb filled with swirling colors that danced like a heartbeat. It was an embodiment of all that was lost, but also all that could be regained. Emily reached down, her fingers brushing against its cool surface, and in that moment, a rush of memories flooded through her, the echoes of laughter. The warmth of sunlit days. The pain of betrayal from those who had come before her. Understanding washed over her. Hargrove had harnessed their fears, their darkest secrets, weaving them into the very fabric of the house that had become a prison. Jake! She shouted, locking eyes with her son. It's time to face our fears together. We can break this cycle. His eyes reflected the orb's glow, shimmering with the brightness of their combined courage. With a nod, they each reached for the orb, fingers intertwining as they pressed their palms firmly against its surface. A surge of energy flooded through them, a wave of warmth that chased away the cold clutching their hearts. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage echoing through the chamber. Emily felt Hargrove's presence shift, a chill brushing against her neck. Foolish girl. He boomed, voice dripping with malice. You cannot break the curse. It's what you are. No. She shouted defiantly, the light pulsating faster. This is not who I am, and I want to let your darkness define us. With every ounce of willpower, she summoned the energy surrounding the orb, feeling her heart synchronize with Jake's. Together, they pushed once more against the foundation of fear embedded in the shadows, letting go of the pain. The orb exploded with radiance, light spilling forth in a cascade, illuminating every corner of the room. Faces from the portraits melted, freeing the souls trapped inside. A chorus of soft whispers rose, harmonizing together a symphony of gratitude and emerge. Now! She shouted, as the light surged toward Hargrove, consuming the darkness around him. No! He roared, thrashing as the shadows lashed out, scrambling to hold on to something they knew was slipping away forever. Emily could see that he was losing his hold. The shadows shrieked and writhed, broken under the power of pure light. Together. Keep pushing. They channeled everything they had, the laughter, the love, the bonds of family. In that moment, they crafted a vortex of energy, engulfing Hargrove in a blazing eruption of brilliant illumination. Each flicker of light represented memories, lives broken by the curse of fear. Each pulse of energy pushed them further into their truth, the light of love, and pulled Hargrove closer to his reckoning. The shadows shrieked one last time before dissolving, the malevolent grip of darkness shattered. In an instant, Hargrove became a wisp of smoke, fading into nothingness, scattering among the echoes of the fallen souls. The room fell silent, the echoes of shadows gone, replaced by the warmth of release. Emily collapsed to her knees, panting, the weight lifted from her soul. Mom? Jake's voice was small, soft yet illuminated by a light that had fought through the storm of the night. We did it, Jake! Emily exclaimed, her voice breaking. She scooped him into her arms, tears streaming down her face. We broke the curse. You're safe. For a moment, it felt like the world around them shimmered with life, the air cleared of the heavy remnants of despair. The oppressive energy faded, leaving only the soft warmth of motherhood, love, and safety. As they embraced, the room shifted. The walls glowed brighter, reshaping themselves, revealing the bright porch light of their home just a door away. Come on, Emily said, smiling through her tears. Let us get back to where we belong. Hand in hand, they stepped toward the door and out of the darkness. Behind them, the echoes of despair faded away, sealing the past into the recesses of forgotten memories, a final goodbye to what had once sought to consume them. With every step into the light, Emily felt her spirit lifting. Jake was safe, and together they had defied the shadows, emerging stronger. As they crossed through the threshold, Emily inhaled the fresh night air, a mixture of freedom and possibility. The curse was finally broken, and in this new dawn, they would reclaim their lives, but one thing lingered in the back of her mind, a quiet reminder: the power of fear was a force that could never fully disappear. It was something they would have to face together, time and time again. But they wouldn't let it defeat them. As their laughter mingled with the night breeze and dawn light bathed their porch, the world ahead was bright and it was theirs to explore. Make sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us spread these tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how Emily and Jake's journey unfolds beyond this night. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.